The National Assembly's recess enters the second week. Lawmakers are still in the eye of the storm for failing to adopt an electronic transfer of election results. We will speak with the spokesman of the Senate to get his view on topical issues in the National Assembly. This is the Hello Chambers. I am Tijesu Adiri. The Electoral Act Amendment Bill was arguably going to be one of the most critical pieces of legislation that will become a legacy of the 9th National Assembly. But it seems lawmakers did not seize the opportunity to impress the people they represent. The clause that allows for the electronic transfer of results was expunged from the bill that was finally passed. But this has now caused a crisis of credibility for the legislature.
A list of all of us, our names are here, state by state. And it starts with Abia and ends with Zamfara. So we'll call our names and then we vote.
We have a register. In that register, we have two parties here and the third one. Those did not require that we should stand up and say, we are of APC here. If any APC member wants to go and vote there, then let him be counted. That is the register.
When the clerk calls somebody's name, answer your name and tell us where you are.
Senator Akpan Albert Basi.
I vote yes to the recommendation of in this report.
My name is Abubakar Kari, Senator, and I'm voting no against the motion moved by Senator Albert.
I vote yes for full electronic voting.
My name is Senator Christopher Stephen Ekpenyang. I vote yes for electronic transmission.
Ahmed Alindume, I categorically vote no against the amendment by distinguished Senator Albert.
I therefore vote yes to electronic transmission of results, because that is what Nigerians want.
I hereby, because I want uniformity in our laws, I hereby vote no to the Albert Amendment. Thank you.
My name is distinguished Senator Stephen Adi Odi. I vote no.
I am Mohammed Njimo Goje, and I stand to vote no against the amendment.
My name is Gershon Basi. I vote in support of the motion and in support of the report recommendations.
Ali Saidu Ahmed. I stand to vote for no for the amendment that was sought.
It is unconstitutional to subject INEC to NCC. Therefore, I vote for electronic transmission and for retention of the committee's report.
Mr. President, I stand on the side of the people, of Nigerians. I vote yes. And I stand by this.
Senator Peter Nwombosi, I vote against the motion moved by Albert.
Obinoba, Ebony Central. I say yes to electronic transmission.
Kau, I stand to support. I say yes because I have all the networks in Abuja.
For the amendment proposed by Senator Albert Basi Akpan, 28 voted yes. 28 voted yes, those that supported the amendment. 52 senators voted no, they don't want the amendment. 28 of our colleagues, senators, are absent in different parts of the country doing some jobs for the Senate and the National Assembly. Nobody abstained. Total 108. Total votes cast 80, and that is 28 plus 52. This now settles the issue of 52-3, that this amendment proposed and voted for by senators, proposed by Sabi, stands.
Members have been trying to say that that clause that was carried was inappropriate and that it was never carried.
Well,
and we cannot sit.
Let me beg of you, sir.
We cannot sit on this floor.
Let me beg of you, sir.
And allow that inappropriate action to be taken.
Please,
so I'm calling on my colleagues that if that is the case, that they have carried it and waiting for us to do a rescission, because it was never carried. So the issue of rescission
No, sir.
will not even arise. I will advise that we leave the chamber. We are not part of it.
Well, if you are saying you are not part of it, it's a different entirely. You are entitled to our opinion, and that's the meaning of democracy. Thank you very much. We are grateful. Leader, long title. No, amendment.
Will lead to our decision on Section 52 of this very important electoral act. I would like to move that the long title be reviewed to delete any technological device or electronic device because of the briefing we have received from the officials of NCC.
To go back to go and negotiate with Senate, they're done, and they were done with their work. So we had to abide strictly by our rules, which is for us to lay that report, to lay the conference report, and then the House will vote on whether to adopt it or not. And the House voted to adopt it. That's the procedure. That's the procedure. And that's democracy at work.
At TVC Communications, we're all about our audience. Millions of viewers, listeners, and readers every day all around Nigeria.
Our 2 TV stations are among the most watched in Nigeria.
TVC News is our award-winning 24-hour national and international news channel headquartered here in Lagos, broadcasting live from our custom-built state-of-the-art news headquarters.
TVC, the top-rated family entertainment channel, is the place for fun, music, and information.
With news bureau and studios around the country and the ability to go live anywhere, anytime, we are first for breaking news in Nigeria. Awarded the NMMA TV Station of the Year, TVC News is the station of choice for news that...
And when you can't watch us, listen to us. 102.3 Max FM Lagos and 90.9 Max FM Abuja are now ranked among the most listened to radio stations in Nigeria.
In Lagos, TVC, our leading family entertainment TV channel, has a 47% market share. But this is just the start of our journey, as we plan to add even more services to entertain and inform our ever-growing audience. Thanks for being part of the TVC communications story.
The Petroleum Industry Bill also divided lawmakers and set them at loggerheads with different interest groups and regions in the country. Joining us to put issues in perspective is Senator Ajibola Bashiru, spokesman of the Senate. It's good to have you on the program.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. And also thanks for the opportunity to engage Nigerians and give them necessary information as to what we do.
Let's get to the crux of the matter. The dust is yet to settle over the passage of the PIB and the amended 3% equity share for host communities as approved by both chambers of the National Assembly. Now, some lawmakers are still yet to come to terms with this decision and have even taken their grievance a step further by urging President Buhari not to grant presidential assent to the bill. How is the Senate reacting to this development, and could this also jeopardize the entire process?
I would not say that it would jeopardize the entire process, and I say with all sense of responsibility that it would be uncharitable for any legislator to say that the president should not host community, 3% petroleum OPEX requirement. That amount, 3%, although very very easy to call, amount to $502.38 million annually. So are we saying that the president should not allow host community to earn that amount of money with prospect of possible improvement on that amount in the nearest future? And of course, aside the 3% to the host community, by Section 104, Subsection 4 of the Petroleum Industry Bill as passed, the penalties for gas flaring also expressly is provided that will go to the host community for environmental remediation and the welfare of the host community. So I think the legislator in question is only taking the provision in isolation. And of course, he's also oblivious of the fact of the benefit that the oil community will realize from a rejuvenated, competitive oil and gas market. And I believe that democracy is about majority. And of course, as a certain senator, our position was for 5%, but because of the conviction that we believe that our oil and gas market must be competitive, and we also believe that there must be a starting point. For the past 30 years or so, we have been on this petroleum industry bill. Since 1965, we have not had any democratically enacted legislation to drive our oil and gas sector. So I believe this development, this positive development, should not just be thrown overboard because some of us feel strongly about what has been provided in the host community provision. You cannot throw away the baby with the bathwater. And that is the opinion, my view, and also the view of the majority of the senators.
There was a division in the Senate chambers during the consideration of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, particularly the clause that had to do with electronic voting and transmission of election results. How did you vote in that session, and why?
I think it's very important to even first say that the question of how did you vote is what were we voting for was even first be examined, because the mischievous propaganda machinery of the PDP and some unsuspecting members of the media just went to town and say APC senators voted against electronic transmission. Far from the truth. It's actually far from the truth and very mischievous. And I will explain. In the provision of section 52, there are 5 subsections there. So the first subsection should be taken holistically and look at separately. In subsection 1, it was expressly provided that the Imperial Electoral Commission have the power to adopt electronic voting system, and of course, by way of open secret ballots. There was no issue about electronic voting. When it comes to transmission of election results, the wordings that was used in 52 subsection 3 by the Senator Gaya committee was that INEC may transmit election results where practicable. I'm a legal practitioner, and even for a layman, when you say where practicable, what you are doing is to put unfettered, unbridled, uncontrolled, and nebulous discretion in INEC to determine in a staccato manner where and when it will transmit election results. Some of us felt strongly that yes, we should be able to provide for possibility of electronic transmission. So far from it, we did not vote against electronic transmission, but we said electronic transmission may be adopted where NCC, which is an institution of government, shadowed with that responsibility, certify security and adequacy of the network coverage to support that, and with the approval of National Assembly. But people just went to town, even before we left the plenary around 6:30 p.m. that night, that APC senators voted against electronic transmission. The wording of what we voted for was the commission may transmit result of election electronically where the NCC, Nigeria Community Commission, certify as to security and coverage of the network and approved by National Assembly. Then the other leg of argument was that it was said that constitutes an erosion of independence of the INEC. There's nothing like absolute independence of any arm of government. Even the president will have to submit his budget to the National Assembly. INEC itself has to submit his budget to the National Assembly. Then by item 22 on the exclusive legislative list, the National Assembly is vested with the power to make law for election into the office of the president, vice president, governor, and deputy governor, and any other offices created under the law. Mode of election, means of transmission of election, and so on and so forth are part of the electoral process which the National Assembly have the power to make law. Far from it, section 87 that talks about independence of INEC only talk about INEC independence when the law has been made. We cannot, for instance, direct them on how they want to conduct the election in line with their act already made. We cannot give supervisory role as to the conduct of the election. But when it comes to establishing legal framework for election, which include the mode of voting, the manner of voting, procedure of voting, the manner of transmission of results, manner of recording of results, and so on and so forth, they are within the province of the National Assembly competence by virtue of section 4, section 4 of the Constitution and item 22 of the exclusive legislative list. And of course, when we are confronted with this, we said the Nigerian law is getting developed. We don't say we know all. But if you think this provision is not in line with the Constitution, Section 1, Section 3 of the Constitution allow for it to be challenged on the ground of constitutionality, and the National Assembly is ever willing to abide by whatever decision of the court in that regard. But I believe, and as a legal practitioner, that it will be preposterous for any reasonable Nigerian to allow itself to be swayed by the propaganda that we should accede to a request that gives a nebulous, vague, and rather absolute, discretion without any parameter in transmission of result of election electronically. We're all aware of possible, problem of hacking. We also have a problem of possible individual selection in order to avoid transparent, election.
All right. Your party, the APC, is now being accused of standing against the conduct of free and fair elections in the country. Seeing how most APC senators voted on the matter of electronic transmission of results, do you think your actions are being misinterpreted?
It's not even our action. I've explained to you. What we voted, the law you are talking about has more than 138 sections. And somebody picked a subsection and said, APC senator did not want free and fair election. I will tell you and tell Nigerians the salient provisions that actually further the realization of free and fair election in the bill that we have passed. One, the legal recognition of electronic voters card reader. You know, previously, card reader was introduced by way of guideline and manual of the election. This has created a legal problem. One of them is in the case of Wike and Peter side. In the litigation where the election of Governor Yeson Wike of the PDP was challenged, evidence was adduced as to the fact that the number accredited based on the card reader are far less than the total vote recorded. But of course, the Supreme Court said overvoting by the then extant Section 45 of the Electoral Act only define overvoting in relation to total number on the register, not in relation to accreditation. And the INEC guideline is the one that recognizes use of card reader, and therefore it will not constitute non-compliance with the provision of the electoral law. That was why the case was decided against the petitioner in that case. So what the new bill has done is to make a serious reform in that area of the law. As of today now, accreditation is now recognized to be done by card reader by virtue of the new bill that has been passed. At the same time, the definition of overvoting has been amended to be in reference to the total number of accreditation. So card reader will play a very vital role, not only in accreditation, but in determining and ensuring that overvoting is not allowed to redo our election process. Secondly, there is also the strengthening of the use of agents for the purpose of election. We have introduced a provision to allow political parties to bring in their agent at least 14 days before the election. With this amendment, their photographs and their contact will be there, and their specimen signature so that we can be sure that nobody forges a signature of an agent of another party on the result sheet. Then also, the bill also allow agents to play active role in the process of accreditation. Section 52 or so of the bill allow agents to challenge anybody of impersonation where suspicion is suspected not to be a registered voter at that polling unit. Then when it comes also to collation of results, this has also been strengthened in that provision. More fundamentally, the problem of pre-election has also been addressed by providing for 180 days provision for the emergence of candidates of political parties so that there will be ample room for adjudication of pre-election matter. These are salient provisions that elevate the legal position in terms of election in the country. But I don't know whatever motive of those who just went to town with an isolated subsection and seek to rubbish the effort of the International Electoral Commission, the effort of our committee, and the active engagement of society that led to the enactment of the law.
Don't you think INEC will be giving up its independence if the Nigerian Communications Commission and even the National Assembly, which should also be a part of the elections, is involved in the decision-making process of how election results should be transmitted?
I think that's also part of the misconception. There's no provision that says NCC should be involved in decision-making. It is the provision is an enabling provision to say upon what condition will the INEC be able to say that we are now transmitting results. There's a difference between legal regulation and actual transmission of results. What the proposed amendment sought to do is that NCC must come with a certification. NCC is not an arm of APC, it's not an arm of any body, but it's a regulatory body that has the necessary technical know-how as to telecommunication, security, coverage, and the necessary data involved. And what I'm saying is that it's just like your television station, TVC, saying that because NBC has some role to play, has eroded totally your independence. We're not even talking of NCC being involved in transmission of results. But before the National Assembly would ultimately allow a decision to be making, let that be scientific, empirical evidence as to security and adequacy of the network. And I think that is what any reasonable person really concerned about uniformity, about integrity, and about collective sanity of our electoral system would definitely abide with. And as I said, that provision is in line with the legislative competence of National Assembly, going by item 22 on the exclusive legislative list, read in conjunction with section 4 of the 1999 Constitution as amended.
Since the National Assembly thought it wise to make this inclusion, why weren't civil society groups also carried along, at least to maintain some level of accountability and transparency?
I don't know in what way civil society will be carried along. They were part and parcel of the public hearing, but the ultimate decision on what law to make, which law to make, the mode of the law to make rests in the National Assembly by virtue of section 4 of the Constitution. And we swore to uphold that Constitution, and that's exactly what we have done. Of course, we are entitled, the civil society are entitled to ventilate their opinion, but the ultimate decision as to what provision will be included is that of the National Assembly, and that's what we have done in this regard. Of course, with further engagement, it may be possible that we amend. There's no law that is sacrosanct. Even the constitutional provision may be amended. So rather than just engaging in mustangling, engaging in mischievous interpretation of motive, the civil society could constructively engage with the leadership. And if we are convinced as to the veracity and the genuineness of that engagement, then an amendment can be made in that regard. In any event, I must point out that the bill has not even gone through conference. You know, there is a version by the Senate, there's another version by the House of Rep. The practice, a tradition here is that there will be a conference committee of equal number from the two chambers. So ultimately, what we should be talking about is in what way and manner will the conference committee decide on these rather contentious issues. So ultimately, what will be sent for the president as for the access of the president is the report of the conference committee as adopted by the two chambers in their separate sitting. I think that clarification needs to be made to Nigeria to know that the last word has not been added on the actual word and language of the relevant provisions of the electoral bill.
Lawmakers are on break for about 2 months. What are lawmakers doing with this much time on their hands?
I think there appears to be a misconception as to the work of lawmakers. Plenary sitting is different from the work of lawmakers. As I'm speaking now, just yesterday on your television station, I saw one of our senators, Senator Theodore Oji, I think at Lagos on the electoral division company with my colleague, Senator Uriolowo, going on oversight function. Our colleagues are all over the country doing oversight function. And presently, I'm in my constituency, also engaging with my constituency. We are politicians, engaging with our community, part of our work. So we continue to work almost on a daily basis. And you could know that I was almost also late even for this engagement because I was also engaged in some other meeting with my community. So our work continues on a daily basis, but plenary is only on recess. Community work continues, our political work continues, and our engagement with our constituents continues.
What do we hope to see once the National Assembly resumes in September? Any new piece of legislation Nigerians should look out for?
By the grace of God, when we resume in September, we will finalize work on the electoral amendment bill. As I told you, there will be a conference committee report. Secondly, we will we are hoping to receive the 2022 Appropriation Act before the end of September. Before we proceeded on recess, we have taken the medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper, which is the necessary document upon which the 2022 appropriation will be prepared. We ensured that this was completed so that as soon as we resume in September, we'll be able to receive the appropriation. And just as we have done in the past 2 years in the 9th Assembly, we hope to maintain our commitment to the January-December budget cycle. And of course, our work on the constitutional amendment has reached an advanced stage. Before we proceed on recess, there was a retreat that was held at the Senate, and I think even before we complete work on our recess, we'll hold additional retreat to ensure that we come up with a final position on constitutional amendments by September.
That is the program for this week. You can watch it again on TVC News YouTube channel. Do not forget to subscribe and share on all social media platforms. Thank you for watching. See you next time.